the two things that scare me the most in movies: masks. Unseen children laughing in the background, but you can hear them. That happens in this movie. You might get automatic points because it scared the living piss out of me. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Alex. I talk a lot of movies on this channel, on occasion video games and TV shows. And today I'm going to be talking about the third Agatha Christie Hercule Poirot. What are we calling this series? Is it the Agatha Christie series? Is it the Hercule Poirot series? I have no idea. Whatever. It's the third one after Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, sequel to those movies. Kenneth Branagh once again stars as the famed detective Hercule Peroit. Celebrated sleuth Hercule Poirot, now retired and living in self-imposed exile in Venice, reluctantly attends a Halloween seance at a decaying haunted palazzo. When one of the guests is murdered, the detective is thrust into a sinister world of shadows and secrets. I don't think these movies are like great or anything. I really did enjoy Murder on the Orient Express. I think it is better than Death on the Nile. Death on the Nile is solid. It's fine. I was just off-put by some of the production value in that movie. I thought it looked fake as hell, but it was still a solid enough mystery to keep me invested in wanting to go see these movies. And A Haunting in Venice looked like it was going to be something different. And quite frankly, I think that this is the best of the three. And it is because it does feel a little bit different than those other two. I don't think it has as strong of a cast as those other two. Those casts are huge in those. And this one's a lot smaller compared to those. Not as many big names in this one. But felt like I was the most intrigued in this movie with the story that was being told. I found myself invested. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to know who the killer was in this movie. And of course, it's got a big ensemble cast, so almost everybody is a suspect. Like, so I started writing down my suspect list, and in the first two, I could guess who the suspects were or who many of the suspects were. I mean, Death on the Nile, it was the most obvious thing ever. When you knew it was Armie Hammer and Emma Mackey, I was like, I could have solved this case in 2 seconds, and I could have saved Hercule Poirot so much time where he could have poured a bunch of champagne to fill denial. This one, I was like, okay, you're all here. I think it could be you. I think it could be you. It might not be you. You're suspicious enough where it could be, but maybe it's not. I don't know. I really just didn't have as much of a clue. I was about like who it ended up being. I was about 70% sure it was them. It wasn't like, oh yeah, it's a foregone conclusion. Yeah, I'm 110% sure it's those guys. And no, in this one, I'm 70% sure it's you. I'm like 30% sure it's you. And I'm like 50% sure it's you. And quite frankly, that's what I like best about murder mysteries. And I think that that's what this movie does so well compared to the previous 2 adaptations of these Agatha Christie novels. This is also an adaptation of the lesser-known Agatha Christie novels. So maybe that also comes into play with how much I enjoyed this more than the previous 2, since there have been more versions of those previous 2 movies that were made and were probably a lot better. The thing is that it didn't feel like those 2 movies didn't feel like they added anything new. This one does. It adds some supernatural horror elements. Unfortunately, I think the horror elements in this movie are kind of lame. Like, there is some scary shit in this movie. Like, the children laughing, those freaking masks, and then there's this scene with Hercule Poirot in a bathroom, and it involves a mirror, and then a little girl. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck? So you get some things like that, but it just relies on so many jump scares and horror cliches that trying to blend the 2 genres together, it didn't feel like it was the horror movie it wanted to be. It just felt more like, okay, we got the seance, we got some murders, it takes place on Halloween, that's scary enough for people. It wasn't scary to me when you're making loud noises and you see candles go out. It's just like, boom, jump scare. I'm like, nope, this is in Dolby and it's loud as shit. I'm not scared. I'm scared by that freaking mask and those children laughing that are unseen. Even though it does offer something new to the genre, I didn't think that the horror elements of this movie meshed really well with the murder mystery. I was more invested in the murder mystery and the investigation and the mystery behind what was actually happening. I love these movies though. I love that they don't rely on action. I love that they rely more on Perot's interactions and his interrogations with the suspects, because that's where you're learning with him. That's how I felt in this movie. I felt like I was trying to piece together the actual mystery with him instead of guessing it right off the bat. I like these movies are movies, this one in particular, where you have to pay attention to every line of dialogue, every word that is said by every character. That's really how I started to piece together some things. There's some certain reveals here where I'm just like, well, okay, that makes sense. Or I'm like, no, that seems a bit too far-fetched, but that's the beauty of these movies to me. That's really putting your mind into the detective's shoes, and I think that this movie, out of the three, does that the best. I think the production design here is a massive step up from Death on the Nile. They actually film on location. They use actual sets. I think the lighting and the cinematography was great. Lighting captured this gothic feel to it. I didn't even feel like I was in post-war Italy. I felt like I was watching a detective in like the 1870s or something, and this takes place in 1947. They did a really good job with the production design to make it feel like it was like you were in this Victorian palazzo in Italy, and it had this gothic feel to it. Even when it was in color, it seemed like it was in black and white because the lighting was perfect. It takes place all over a span of a night, and the flashbacks were in black and white. I think that made the most sense for this one. For the vibe that they were going for, that was perfection to me. Seeing that they learned their mistake from Death on the Nile, I was like, okay, yeah, don't use a bunch of CGI. Film on location. Use actual sets. Use actual props. Use some great costumes. I think this movie is a massive step up in that regard. You still have the signature Kenneth Branagh Dutch angles, but they work in this movie. It makes you feel like a fly on the wall when he's talking to people before the stuff actually goes down. You're trying to get to know everybody who's part of this seance. I think that actually, in this one, made it feel like you were getting to know the characters, even if some of them maybe weren't as interesting as you were hoping they would be, or as interesting as some of the characters in the other two. I think that's part of what is going to come, though, if you adapt a lesser-known Agatha Christie novel, as opposed to something like Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile. This one I did enjoy. It's a deliberately slow pace, and I get that these movies might not be for everyone who wants a slow-paced murder mystery movie. That might turn a lot of people off. I think it turned a lot of people off from the first two because it's a lot of dialogue, it's a lot of interaction, it's a lot of investigating. There's obviously conveniences in this movie. I feel like in all of these movies, I think this is also a big weakness for this movie. I feel like Perot just comes to the conclusion as to who it is way too quickly. It just feels very convenient. That's always going to be a thing with these movies, and I think that maybe the shorter runtime for this movie had something to do with that, where it's like, oh shit, like, what are we gonna do? Oh, we just got this plot twist, but oh, that's not the actual thing, and okay, now he just figured it out just like that. It's like, kind of like, wait, what? How? Like, I feel like I don't have enough clues. Like, keep investigating, man. I found this one to be the most enjoyable of the three, and I will say I enjoyed A Haunting in Venice with 3/4 worth of a bucket of popcorn. I'd be down for more Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot adaptations. Keep it going. I mean, I don't think a single one of these movies is bad. I just felt like this one was different enough. It had that vibe, even if it didn't fully capture the horror elements I was hoping it would. This one felt like it was the most put together one. This one felt like it had the most effort put into it. If you have seen Death on the Nile, if you have seen A Haunting in Venice, almost got my movies confused there, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I will see you at the movies somewhere.